Welcome everybody to the wonderful session you're going to have for an absolute rock star marketing guru, global marketing guru. And so anybody interested in marketing, there's nobody you need to look forward to talk to. And we are so delighted that she's consented to come and talk to you guys on such a time in the world. So thank you, Mansi. Let me tell you a little bit about Mansi. She's a dear friend and my classmate. She's currently the Regional Vice President, Asia Pacific, Middle East. So literally everything you can see on the left-hand side of India, she manages at Shell. She's based out of Singapore. She's a seasoned business leader with 20 years across multiple industries, business models, and markets. And we're not going to have anybody who's actually moved all the way from a soap like Olay all the way up to a lubricant like Shell. So this is the perfect topic for Mansi. She's running a massive region, and she's also on the board of JASLOC Saudi Arabia, Hankook Korea. So she's on boards of global corporations around the world, and Shell Aviation India, and sponsors 7,000 women network for Shell across Asia Pacific. So truly an inspirational leader. She's amongst the Economic Times fastest rising leaders in India, and was part of the World Economic Forum top women innovators in the country in 2018. She has been on jury on many national and international business awards and speaker around the world. Her previous roles include managing director at Shell India, which was very, very recently. She was global director for Gillette. I'm sure all the guys know what is Gillette. She was Asia Pacific head for consumer and market knowledge and various roles across Asia Pacific in sales, strategy, operations, marketing, and insights at Procter & Gamble. Again, Procter & Gamble, as all of you know, dream company in marketing. She's lived in Singapore, India, and Boston, and worked across diverse product categories, business models, channels, consumer segments, and cultures. She has led accelerated business growth and equity for brands like Shell, Olay, Gillette, Pantene, HNS, Whisper, SKII, I think, in varied global and local roles. Her core strengths are proficiency in unearthing consumer and trade insights and using it to develop winning strategies for organizations to deliver better excellence. With strong belief in making a positive impact on people and work, Mansi's passions include fitness. Now, will come as a surprise to you. She's done 50 half-stroke full marathons, so she's a rock star on and off the boardroom. Dancing, she's a classical Indian dancer, and she's done mentoring and teaching at our alma mater, SPJMR, Harvard, Babson College, Great Lakes, and BD Foundation. She's a BTech in Electronics and Communications from NIT Kurukshetra and an MBA from SPGen. She's married with 2 children, and we are absolutely delighted to have you, Mansi, to take it forward and enthrall the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarun, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm here just because of Tarun, and he's an absolutely wonderful and delightful leader, person, and friend. And the work he's doing and the way he's doing is so inspiring, and the kind of difference he's making is so inspiring. That I really feel that this kind of entrepreneurship is what we all really need. So Tarun, my absolutely thanks to you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to engage with people, which is personally my passion. Yeah.
Thanks.
Tarun asked me on different topics which I potentially could turn and talk on. And there was one which was written as like, disrupting or changing the industry. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful topic. I don't know what I can talk, but then I can always bring out my experience and share it with you guys, which is my intent. Yeah. So we'll take about an hour, to go through something which I'll just share from my experience. Maybe in about 30-40 minutes, and then we'll leave the balance time for you to be asking questions to me. Keep it interactive. I wish I was in a classroom with all of you so that we can, as they say, create the magic together. But I think we are all in very special circumstances, and I'm sure each of you are dealing it in your own way. I hope you all are safe in wherever you have logged in from, and very comfortable to listen. We'll keep it interactive, so if you want to stop me at any point, please unmute yourself, ask me that question. I don't want it to be a monologue by any stretch of imagination. Yeah. So quick things, my audio hopefully is clear, my video is clear, and then my screen is clear. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is, let me introduce what I want. At the topic given is change the industry. Yeah, and in terms of really us delving into the topic, now let's just see whether the technology really helps us or not. Just give me a second. Tarun, would you like to then just share the presentation? Yeah, so that it's a little bit more seamless. It's somehow not changing from my end, but that's okay. So I'll continue. So guys, what I really want is that what I understand is this is a very exciting group of future leaders, and I see you as a team of people coming out from this institute and going out and making change in the world. And one thing which we kind of like always debate is, how do we create the student community which is coming out to be actually going out and changing the industry. So in terms of what I wanted to accomplish today was just three things. If you can move to the next slide, Tarun. First of all, let's understand what does changing the industry mean, because my definition of change versus your definition of change versus industry definition of change might be quite different. So is there a framework which we can all embrace in terms of what will this topic look like? Second, how do they then go about doing it? We all talk about change. I wish it was that simple. Otherwise, we would have all been rolling in a lot of money. So how do you go about doing it? And lastly, what I want to leave with you is that as students and as future leaders and as professionals, what can you do about it? Yeah, once you are given the opportunity, what will you do about it? And maybe not wait all the way to join the industry. You can do something today, and maybe not wait for all the time to become a CEO, but how do you do it every day, every single day? Right. So let's jump into some case studies, because I think that's the best way for us to define what does changing the industry mean. Yeah. So let me pick up the first case study, and I would want a couple of you to unmute and answer for me. So you are a newly joining brand manager in P&G on the brand Pantene, right? So this is your day 10. You have done all the formalities, and the job given to you is grow the Pantene brand, right? And there's obviously a lot of tacit information which you will have. Tell me a few ideas which come to your mind in terms of how would you grow the business. Yeah, so just unmute yourself and let me hear some voices in the room. I'm really told that you guys are really boisterous and noisy people, so this is a time when you show how noisy you are. All right, so I think in the spirit of time, what I really want, this 140 odd people in the call, if you can, take a paper right next to you and just jot down for yourself, some has been talked like flavors, colors, distribution, media, new variants, distribution channels, etc. And I'm sure your brain is busting right now of a lot of other things which you can do. Just, I would want if you can put it on a piece of paper as you're thinking about it. Now, as you think of each of these ideas, you will realize that there is obviously a range to it, from current base business model to an evolving business model, but primarily all of them, what you are talking about is in the current framework of how we think about doing the business, right? And I would really challenge that. Is that changing the industry? Is that really disrupting the industry? Does that really fall in that gamut? Probably no, yeah? So let me take a minute to rewind back to a couple of years to say, okay, how has this category, a hair care category, really changed the game in terms of growing? And then where can the future on this category look like, right? So if you would rewind yourself maybe 50, 60 years at a global level, it obviously started with shampoos as a basic, it evolved from soap to shampoos. From shampoos, the first time it started growing was to really introduce new variants. Yeah, I think that was the easiest way, that if you are having one variant, you introduce various different variants around it. The second one, the big disruption came in when they started really talking about shampoo plus conditioner. Yeah, I think that was another way when you really disrupted the category by introducing a range rather than just looking at within the range. The third disruption, specifically in developing markets like India, came when they changed the application mode. So from bottles to sachets. So you really brought in, what that did was two things. One, it lowered the absolute price point at which it could be sold. So from an average 100 rupees, which would have been bought in India, it brought down the price point to 3 rupees, and it could take the distribution to almost 100%, right? And if you would have data, that particular disruption increased the total category value 3 times over than what it was before it. A simple innovation of the delivery model, the same molecules which were there in the bottle, now made available in a sachet. The next set of disruption, if you have to really think through from a point of view, will be in micro-organic levels. So what I mean by that is changing of internal ingredients, you change the communication methodology, you change the way the advertising starts talking about the category, but those are very minor changes as you go along. So the way the category works, it goes through minor changes, and then there's a blip of a major change. Then it becomes like an industry standard. Then you wait for blips of minor change, and then again there is a blip, there is a very big change after that. Yeah. So that's how typically the category will evolve in that sense. Now, if you think of the future of where this category is going to go, or what will be the major disruptions in that sense, will be in services. How can the brand go absolutely in services? What can be the entire range of categories? So you talked about shampoos and conditioners, but there are pre-oils, there are serums, there are conditioning, off with liquid, without liquid. There are products which you can use waterless, yeah, which you don't require, any water you can actually be using, and that's actually a product which is absolutely getting used right now. So there would be changes in product category, across the category, service and delivery models of how this category will actually be delivered in that sense. And, and if you have to really think much ahead in time, there would be a lot of other disrupting ways by which the digital is going to play a role in both how you interact with the consumer and giving them the ownership, and also disrupting the way how the consumer is going to experience the brand inside their bathrooms. Yeah, so there's a lot of digital, so it can go, and I'll talk about that in the next example as well. But this is just a teaser to get us started. Let's move to a next case study, which is on, say, blades and razors. So just to be gender equal, I took one female and then one male example over here. And again, now you are the brand manager, the senior brand manager of Gillette, yeah, and the brand has been going really strong. A lot of innovation, as you see, has happened in terms of 2 blades to 3 blades to 5 blades. Will you make it 10 blades from an innovation point of view? Where will you go? Yeah, and then there's only so much you can do in terms of advertising, or how would you, but you have a very massive growth target to be growing at, say, 25 to 30%. So where would the changing of the industry come through? Yeah. So again, let me take a pause and just hear one or two voices here. And I would really encourage all of you to just make some extensive notes of what comes to your mind. Yeah. So just unmute yourself, just share me your thoughts.
Ma'am, the major problem which we face today is that whenever we target these kind of brands, there are people still we find that they don't go for it because they have certain myths in their mind. So through advertising, we would try to burst those myths also, so that we can get to more of the audience. And also we can try upon looking forward for making such kind of changes in the razors that they are very much more handier and more prominent to use, because sometimes we feel that still there are many of the things and many of the changes can be made in those razors as well, especially for women.
Okay, all right. Good. So I think your brain are thinking in terms of what are the needs of the consumer, what are the pain points, and how do you solve for it, which is a fantastic starting point. So again, let me play for you a 2-minute summary of all the things which were happening in Gillette. So Gillette is a 20 billion brand present in 150 countries. And when P&G bought it over for about 56 billion, the biggest the challenge for us was, how do we grow the acquisition economics with which we have brought, and the business model which was linked to it was all about upsell. Yeah, so you introduce a Mark III, which gets upgraded to Fusion and then gets upgraded to the next. And each time you upgrade, you get a value from the customer. Yeah, and that was the really how the company made money, not on the razor, but on the blade and then on the upgrade. Yeah, so that's how the business model was taken, and the inorganic growth was happening by entering new markets, but that was kind of stagnant because Gillette was present in 150 countries across the globe, and in most markets had a market share of around anywhere between 98% to 89%. Yeah. So where do you grow from there when you are having that kind of a market share in 150 markets and a very, very established business model? So what we did was a couple of things to say, okay, how do we really challenge our overall, and we were the industry, if you have to really think through that. Yeah, so we were the industry. So how do we really disrupt that? So we did a couple of things. One, from an innovation pipeline, we really focused on what the consumer needs were, which surprisingly were actually not in the land of making yourself clean shaven, but were in the line of how do you become much more comfortable with styling. Yeah, so you talked about trimmers, but the kind of innovation pipeline which we were really looking at were things like in line with trends. So shavers which can go right on your fingers, so you can put like a glove, and each of your finger will have a different type of razor or a razor setting or a trimmer, and you can actually shape your beard, actually shape your style to go in that direction. Or it could be more in line with the trends of health, where because once you shave, you get a DNA of your skin as well. And the moment you put your shaver onto a particular kind of a plate, it will be able to sense your hydration levels of skin, which can be linked to your health pulsometer. So every day your shave is actually giving you signal of how your health is intrinsically. And then if you do it on a longer period of time, it can really, really be a very good measure of the quality of life, because your skin actually is the ultimate way by which the water you drink, the food you drink, the kind of lifestyle you have, it shows up on your skin. Yeah. So those skin can be used for all those health purposes. I can go on and on in terms of the innovation pipeline. So that was one stream. Yeah. The second stream was really in terms of the actual business model. As I talked about, the business model was all about upsell, and you keep upgrading the person to the next level. But then we challenged that and said, no, the business model needs to be a portfolio. So you need to really have a high end for the high end consumer. And we had 4 segments, and then you need to have a variety of offerings for people who want just value. So you need to actually innovate on the lower end as well and make your product very, very cheap and very, very no frills kind of an availability, to an extremely high end, which we bought a brand called Art of Shaving, which has it's $100 shaving experience every time you get a shaving done, but it's like a full. It has a pre-beard oil. It has a setting by which you can setting by which you can keep your blade and razor. It has a service linked with it, a concierge who can come to your home for that, and it has and whole accessorization which you can use using trimmers and things like that. And within that, you can have elements like gold or your personalized name or diamond studded, etc., etc. Yeah. So the range was like, Gillette became like a base, but then you extended a price point offering which was really up there, and a price point offering which can go to really, really the lowest end of the segment, so that you can really play on a portfolio of price points and offerings. So that was second. The third thing which we did was extending the brand Gillette beyond blades and razors into full grooming. Yeah. So what all does the man? So all the adjacencies, from shaving cream to shaving skin, to the moisturizing, to hair care, to body care. So the whole plethora of grooming, rather than looking at us as blades and razors, to say we are in the business of male grooming rather than the business of blades and razors. So kind of like redefining the industry which we were really operating in. Fourth was really more around really challenging our supply chain models, to say currently our products were really getting manufactured in 3 big factories around the world. Yeah. But what if we change the entire supplying model to be more localized? And what kind of innovation does that really provide us, so that we can be much more flexible in the way we bring our product? Yeah, so there was a lot of work which was done in that work stream as well, and then there were a lot of other things which we went into, which were dealing with in the future how we can have Gillette houses which can be a full service, so the money which will be coming from services completely rather than just from the product, right? E-commerce, so we have the Gillette subscription model where you can pay for your next 6 months, and every few months the Gillette box comes to your house automatically with the right number of blades and razors lifted into it, so that you don't have to worry about when do you buy next. And obviously it comes with a nice discount, so that it's hassle-free convenience, but you become a lifetime loyalist to the brand. So there's innovation there as well. So really creating that entire business model on e-commerce. Yeah. Then closer to the home, there were obviously innovation on one of the biggest barrier was Gillette is expensive. So we really broke it down to say, a cost of shaving once with Gillette is less than a tea which you have every day. Yeah, so it really trivialized the price point to say you have like maybe 2 or 3 cups of tea, and this is your pride. This is how you look to the world, and to really work on the price point measurement which the consumer was really dealing with, and so on and so forth. So the point being that you can really explore the entire value chain and challenge each element to say how can I disrupt the category, rather than just looking at the core and then saying, okay, can I just advertise or can I just distribute it a little bit more, etc. Yeah? Let me shift to the next case study, which is probably more interesting and closer to home, which is the lubricants business or the motor oil business, which currently I'm handling. Yeah, so the business portfolio, as Tarun was introducing right now, I'm handling Asia Pacific, Middle East. It's about a 3 billion portfolio of lubricants which we are handling. Now, if I look at the growth, yeah, it's been 6 to 7%, but my target for the next 5 years is 25% growth rate. Plus minus, now with COVID, we'll have to talk separately. Yeah. So the challenge for me and my team is that, okay, how do we really get to that 25? What do we do to change the industry? It's a very fuddy-duddy industry in that sense. You know, you have your car or bike, or you have your factories in which you need lubricants. We supply the lubricants. It's a very simple business model. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to speed up myself a little bit over here. So the way we are thinking from a disruption or changing the category is again in multiple folds, right? So there is a lot of innovation which is happening in upselling from the base lubricants to how do you really get into sustainable lubricants. So we are looking at biodegradable fuels and biodegradable ingredients. So the carbon footprint of whatever you use is zero. Yeah. So and second, a lot of energy efficient lubricants. For example, if you use them in your cars, if your lubricant you were changing, say, in 5,000 kilometers, with that change, you'll be able to change it maybe at 50,000 kilometers. Yeah, so you make it much more long lasting and hence more energy efficient at the end of the day. Yeah, we make money because we'll upsell and it will be costly from the first set, but if you like it on the lifetime, it will be much more convenient. So we are working on a lot of those innovations. It's purely product oriented. Yeah. Then there are a lot of innovations which are packaging oriented. You know, how do you really bring it from a bottle to actually a sachet again, or a different dispensing model, or a dispensing model which is like your fuel station. So it will be placed right next to your petrol pumps, and you dispense it like your petrol, so you don't need these bottles all over the way. So a lot of work on packaging and innovating around packaging and hence consumer needs over there. And changing from a point of view, so this is, and then looking at from digitization, we are having a product called Machine Mags, which basically attaches yourself to your machine and is able to give you real-time signals of how the machine is getting used. And in turn, we provide you real-time information on how you can make it much more efficient. So for example, specifically in big offline machines, so for example, you have Caterpillar, those big digging machines, or JCB construction, they are used on project basis and they use a lot of the lubricants. When we attach those machines into it, we are able to tell the project leader or the project person how much is the productivity of that machine, how much of it is getting used, how much of it is idle, how much is the energy getting used, is that getting used properly or not, is the person just switching it on and not doing any work, etc., etc., so that you can drive more value from the machines which you're using, because what we have put as a sensor in our lubricants. Yeah, so we are able to give them real-time information of sensing through that. We have a product now called Whisper, which again is another form of sensor which goes into very big, very big manufacturing units. So think about all the big plants. So think of it as a Maruti Suzuki plant making all the cars, and the lubricants is going through all of them. This sensor helps us to evaluate which part of the overall manufacturing process is now getting higher noise. So we listen to the friction and we listen to the noise. And as those noise, and these are micro levels, increases, that means there's a higher lubrication need over there. Yeah. So we are able to then proactively manage the overall manufacturing unit, and instead of being a lubricant supplier, we are the total fluid supplier to them. Yeah, so we manage the inventory, we manage when the oil change needs to happen, we manage then the servicing, and hence we add value to our business. Yeah, so that's another revenue stream. Then we are really looking at it from a point of view of digital B2B services, which basically means that when a person is trying to call a lubricant service, they also need a couple of other things. They need a filter change, they need coolants. So we are expanding the portfolio of what we are able to offer them, which are very adjacent to how we are doing our business. And then now with, for example, just the COVID situation, we have quickly pivoted into new things like contactless at your door lube service. Yeah, so you just make it through your app. The person comes in outside your house. You have to just leave your keys outside. The person does your entire lube change, be it your car or bike, goes away, leaves the keys behind, and you do the payment online. Yeah, so it's a complete contactless service arrangement, which we are doing along the way. So as you can see, beyond, and then within marketing, there's a whole lot I can talk about. The disruption with the mechanics is a very interesting one, where mechanics is kind of like the priest in this whole industry, because they are the gatekeepers of what the person uses. So in Shell, we created the world's biggest mechanic program, where we have a direct connection on app with the mechanics, and we provide them points, we provide them training, we provide them a lot of support, and in turn, obviously, we expect them that they would be recommending our brand. And today, globally, we have close to about 1 million mechanics in our database, across various geographies, and that's a disruption in its own self, that we have such a big, major piece of working through that. Then with some of our B2B partners, a disruption came in terms of how we structure the deals itself. Yeah, so the normal structuring was either an upfront payment, which you make. So when, for example, you're going to John Deere, or you're going to Caterpillar, or you're going to Hyundai, yeah, so and you are their preferred supplier, and the typical deal structure was either on cost per liter, and then credit terms, and then some upfront payment. That was broadly how the commercial deal will be signed up. And we brought in a lot of disruption in them by multiple ways. One, by ensuring that we have something called a joint partnership. So, for example, for Ferrari, or for a lot of these, in EV now we have entered with Mahindra as well, where we are actually looking at, their entire racing way by which they go to the marketing, and we provide them actually the technical know-how in their racing teams. Yeah, so we are their technical partners over there. We made the deal, which is much more in terms of, okay, how do we really manage their inventories back end, and looking at that part of the equation. And we've added some added portion called royalties, which is, every time a co-brand of Hyundai and Shell is sold, Hyundai gets a part of that one. So we have kind of like introduced royalty mechanism as well. So you can do a lot of stuff in the way you are putting a commercial deal into the hands as well. And then we're doing tremendous amount of innovation in our supply chain. We're doing a lot of change in the way we are actually reaching our last consumer, through track and trace mechanism, and through this machine industry 4, where every single element in our supply chain, right from the raw material to when the consumer buys, that's all connected. So I actually know at any given point of time in any country, both my raw material situation as well as my output situation, and then managing the entire cost between it. We are able to do it much more deftly, which actually has made one of the biggest cost addition to my entire P&L. Yeah. So, and there are obviously a lot of nuances, but I would leave it at that. But just to give you a flavor of how you can really change the industry rather than thinking it very narrowly. So just to summarize this, if you go to the next slide, this is a Dublin model, which I've been personally very inspired with. And it talks about, a full range by which you can disrupt or innovate. Typically, we start in the middle, which is the offering, which is, product performance, which you guys were really referring to. But as you go along the chain, there's lots what you can do with your services, the way you deliver in your channels, how you create a customer experience, and then on the other side, what kind of enabling processes can you add to that core offering, and then how do you really deal with your entire supply chain, networking, and your core business model itself. Yeah. And you should really, when you're thinking of disruption, when you're thinking of changing the industry, or when you're thinking of, if I get into any category, you need to think along the entire spectrum and not get fixed just by, okay, a small marketing change or a small branding change or a small artwork change or a small distribution change. All of that are important, yeah. But I would really want that, as you think of disruption, you think it in a very holistic manner and think it across your P&L, because that's when the beauty of this whole thing will come, yeah. There are a few examples there which you can, we can send it as post notes to you so that you can really spend some time in thinking through them as well. And each of them are really powerful. We can have a full one-day discussion just going through each of them and explaining to you what all you can do. It's a fascinating topic. But let's turn ourselves to say, okay, then, all right, I understand this whole, there's lots which can I do. But then what, if you could move to the next one, which is like, how do we really do it? And, in a company, how do we make it systematic? How do we really make it a part of our DNA? And how do we really make it more systemic, rather than one day you wake up and say, all right, why don't we change the way we go to mechanics, or why don't we change the way we give our services? So there is a model which we use internally, if you go to the next slide, where we kind of like systematically have these innovation days. We have innovation managers, we have innovation people who actually handle it, and we kind of like put them into the scale of what is the disruptive potential, which is what is the size, is it high, is it low, and how far it is from the core business. Yeah. Is it very far or is it very near? And then depending on this kind of a model, it helps us to really look at which have a higher strategic fit. And ideally, we would want projects which are nearer to our core and are high on the disruption parameter. So all the things which I talked about, typically they would fall through a funnel. So in my company currently in Shell, what we have is a January-February period in which we invite the entire organization, because the innovation ideas needs to come from the front line. And everybody would be submitting an innovation proposal, which can be anywhere in that whole spectrum. It could be about, why do we have a 2-ply label and why not 1-ply label, to why do I have 1.1 milliliters and why can't I fill it with 1.5, to, how do I sell it? How do I make a counter arrangement with ISRO where lubricants can be sold, etc., etc. Yeah. So it has a whole lot of stuff where people actually fill in their innovation ideas. It goes through a funnel which has to do with risk and reward and how strategic important it is. We test it on paper through, through desktop. We take it to consumers or customers and test that idea. And typically by around August, we actually have a plan on how we can take it into the market with some form of prototype. And then there is a lead time. Some are very high end on the technology end, and some supply chain ends are typically 2 or 3 years time frame, which take a much longer time. And few things are much more close in, which we can then take it to the next year. And we keep a small innovation budget so that we are able to bring all of this to life. Yeah. Going to the next page, it just talks about some other tools which, which is more on income and managing it through your P&L, having a very clear learning plan on how do you go about learning right from consumers to customers to all your elements, and then putting it and testing it so that from a money point of view, you are able to really make sense out of it. Yeah. And there are lots and lots of tools now which can help you. The most important part is two things. One is an intent that you want to do it, and B, a zest that you want to grow your business. I think once the intent and the zest are there, rest of the things start flowing in. So that leaves us with the last one, which is fine. This is all industry. This is a nice lecture. This is, whatever. Let's face it to you, as students who are entering MBA, what can you do about it? Yeah. And how will you use the last 30 minutes of what we have talked more practically into your day-to-day life? So I will leave you with 5 things which I personally feel, based on my now 24 years of experience, if you do it, you can be a successful disruptor. Number one, you need to understand your consumer and customers more than you know yourself. Yeah. In a Gillette example, I personally would have been in men's bathroom over 700 consumers in three months. Yeah, I've actually sat, ate, and now I can meet any guy in the world, and within 10 minutes, I can tell what their shaving habits would be, what their attitudes to life is, because I've actually spent a lot of time in knowing how they behave, what they do, how do they manifest themselves in their beards, yeah, or without a beard, as the case may be, yeah. So I think it's really important, once you understand that consumer really from your gut, I think everything which I have talked will automatically flow, yeah. And it will give you the insights, and a lot of the insights will come from unsaid rather than said. They will come from observation, they will come from really knowing their pain points, and starting with the mindset that you are here to serve your consumer, rather than with the mindset that I have to start making money. Yeah, the question always starts with I have to grow, but that's honestly a wrong question to start with. The right question to start with is the consumer you are serving, how do you serve them the best possible way? Number one. Number two, you have to read a lot of your industry and across your industry, because the examples, 90% of the examples of innovation I gave on, say, lubricants were happening in some other category, and we just brought it into lubricants. Yeah. So you have to connect the dots across industries. Like the sachet of lubricants, honestly, we made loads of money on it, but the sachet is an idea which was there like thousands of years back. We just brought it to lubricants, yeah, and we were the first one to bring it, just as an example. For that matter, and I think, and all the work which is specifically happening now in the digital space, of connectedness, of raw material management, of connecting with your consumer, of managing your business, they're all happening in various ways in a lot of different industries. So you need to really connect the dots over there. Third, you need to understand your full P&L. So it's not about, okay, let's launch new SKU. Every SKU or every new product you launch has a corresponding side of costs, or corresponding side of the effort which the organization will take to actually launch it. So you need to really look at it in an integrative way. Maybe this is too early for you to be fully grasping it, but as you'll go through your education process, you'll realize the importance of this one more than other things. Four, which will be very important, which is your insatiable curiosity and energy. You have to be the one initiating ideas and having the energy to actually executing them. Yeah, and most of the times I've seen a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, but then once you give them and empower them to actually go out and do it, the energy fizzles out. Yeah, so I think you need to really, really be the champion, and if you do it, you'll be more successful. Last but not the least, you'll not be able to work alone. So you have to work seamlessly with experts and get all of them on your table to make any of these ideas, as small as how do I make a disruptive digital campaign to how do I really disrupt the business model. Yeah. So in that entire range, you will need and count on a lot of other people who are better in knowing different parts of the business. But your beauty as a leader, future leader, will come in if you are able to get all the forces together and make it happen. Yeah. So I'll leave you with those 5 thoughts on what you can do today would be really creating that knowledge portal in yourself, creating that landscape understanding and understanding of all these things, so that once you are in the real world, you can jump and be the disruptor and be the one who can change the industry. All right, so that's where I'll end, and we can just keep the last slide on in terms of getting any specific Q&As from you.
Great. Can we have questions? I think there are some questions, so I'd like to put them to you, Mansi.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if your innovation doesn't work? The disruption you're trying to do doesn't work. What is the backup plan?
Absolutely. So I think that's a fantastic question. So again, some numbers first. Typically, of every 100 innovations you'll make, only one will be a blockbuster. Yeah. And typically you will have 50 failures for every 100, and the rest will be a range of minor failures to big failures, etc., etc. So two things: one, a better preparation. So the preparation I talked about was the funnel mechanism, where you put it through some stringent criteria, you actually test it out, you are able to get confidence in putting the money, you can stage gate it a little bit. Yeah, so when is the final time when you have to actually bet on the money, you do it with a lot more confidence, so you hedge some of the risk. Second is the culture, which is you actually encourage failure, because till the time you don't go out and do it and fail, you'll never be able to get those blockbusters. So it's really important that as a culture, you create and celebrate failure, to say, hey, we failed and we learned this. Yeah. The most important part of failure is to pause and reflect and say, what did I learn from it? Yeah. If you didn't learn, you missed a golden opportunity. So, I mean, I tell my people all the time that I value failures. The only thing I want is, I want you to tell me, what did you learn from it? Right? And as long as I get that learning and make it a learning organization, I think we are in a good space, I would say. So the plan Bs are typically the funnel, and you take those learnings back and make your product better and better along the way.
Great. The next question we have is, the world is more technology driven. So what language, software should the students learn to be better in marketing?
Okay, all right. Yeah, so there is obviously an umpteen of softwares and things which are available. My piece on that one would be two. One, you can go out and learn lots and lots of things, but what is more important is, are you able, because you'll never be depending, unless and until you want to be the web designer or the person actually making the backup of your marketing program. If you want to be a marketing leader, what you need to do is ask the right questions along with it. Yeah, so you really need to be in the space where you can ask that, okay, the reach, what's the ROI, how is it going to change, can you really customize it to your segments, etc., etc. The rest of the stuff, I tell you 3 today, by tomorrow there'll be 5 more. Yeah, so I think what is really important is that you make your core very strong, as a result of which you are able to work with experts and get them to do the right work for you.
Perfect. The next question is, how do you make some tough decisions? As vice president, you've got so many people around the world working for you. How do you take those tough calls, which impact the business?
Yeah, no, I think I get paid for making the tough calls because all the work is getting done by everybody else. So I honestly feel I have only 2 jobs, which is keep people motivated and make decisions. Yeah. So I think on the decision part of it, 2 parts. One, principle-based decision making. For everything, I try to follow principles. If it's an investment decision, I go through a very thorough piece of objectively looking at it from NPV, VIRs, long-term, strategic, etc. So follow the process. And if it's a people-based decision, typically those are more tougher than the financial decisions. And there again, really looking at the principles of, what's right for the business, what's right for the individual, and then landing it in a way. I think those really work. And the second one is learning from my gut. So if I have to say, I've made huge mistakes all my life, and I learn from them. And there's something in my gut which happens, be it from firing a person, to when you say, okay, this project needs to end now. There's something in my gut which tells me beyond numbers and beyond whatever, which will come through experience. So really listening to every time I take a decision, to reflect as to was it good, bad, how did I feel before and after the decision. After I've taken the decision and before I announce it to the people, I listen to the peace inside me. If I'm at peace after I've taken the decision, that tells me that it's in a good space. Yeah. So I really spend time in listening to my gut and be just reflective, which helps me. And when I'm not at peace, I know I've not made the right decision. So I think that's my personal belief in making the decisions.
Great. Thanks. The next question is, what are the top transferable skills and strengths, that you can go to a new industry and take it with you?
Yeah, so the day I joined Shell, I didn't know E about energy and I didn't know L about lubricants. Yeah, so in fact, I had never touched a lubricant all my life. And as I'm reading the next set of leadership and what will that take, the biggest thing is growth mindset, yeah, or a learning mindset. So be a student all your life is how I'll encapsulate it, which is as long as you're curious, you're learning, you're asking the why, and you go on and leave. And the second one is hard work. So you have to work hard. It doesn't happen automatically. So you have to read a lot. You have to read everything which is available on that subject. And then third, go out and connect a lot of. Yeah, so you won't know everything, but a lot of other people know a lot of things. And extracting their knowledge so that you can be much faster in your journey. So those three, I would say, which is have a curiosity mindset, work very hard, and
Great. The next question is, what is the response to your door-to-door supply of lubricants? And how do you connect with local mechanics?
Yeah, so it's been, we started off in Thailand, where we started off with this door-to-door mechanism. We're able to charge about close to 10% more than what we were doing earlier. So it's an accretive. And the kind of responses which we are getting is a lot of verbatims of, I really felt cared by you. And, you really understood my need right now, specifically for people whose cars and bikes were not able to start because of a longer lockdown period, etc. So super fluid, very, very appreciated by our customers right now. And I think since the mechanic anyway gets the payment along the way and they get cut on the whole thing, they're obviously happy. It's a very tough time for them. We're trying to help them in a lot of other ways than just the correct business. Yeah, and I think probably they are really impacted right now in a very big manner. So we owe a lot to them right now.
Great. What is the difference between the business in India and Singapore? So across countries, how do you approach?
Yeah, so I think typically a business model would be standard across different countries. Yeah. However, there are like whole host of differences as you go from Korea to Egypt in terms of nuances of what the channels they operate in, the price points they work off, within the value offer, what is appreciated more than others? What is the role of relationships in that piece? How does the organization work? Are they much more top down? Are they more professional? What's the capability on ground, etc., etc. So what I typically do is I have this framework, what I call as the business model, yeah, which is very simple, which is right from quantitative stuff to a lot of qualitative stuff. And I rate every country, for lack of any other word is like high, low, medium. So red, green, yellow on each of these parameters. And then I've got an ideal business model where everything should be green. Yeah, so I show the country head or the business team, guys, this is what your point A looks like, which is today. There are a few greens, some yellows, some reds, and then some are really gray right now. Yeah, so let's chart a path of how all of this can be green. Yeah, and then we get into a dialogue of timing, and we get dialogue of what they need from us, and hence, then it becomes like a journey where everyone ultimately will move to that end state where the business model will be green. So what I have to do is manage the nuances and remove the barriers of which comes because of just a very different competition in that market or a very different culture in that market.
Great. So, I mean, there are like truckload more questions, but largely around change management and how do you deal with loss. So there are lots around that. I know you've answered some of them, but a large amount of them are just they're struggling with this whole aspect of change disruption. So anything you'd like to address which would get them more comfort?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the change management part, I think that's probably, and that's the beauty of everything, which is a lot has to do with just people rather than all the assets and the hardware and the money and the P&L behind it. So from a change management, what I have felt is that typically whenever we haven't done or haven't been conscious about it, we have always landed up as a failure or it didn't do too well. And when we have paid a lot of attention to it, it always works. And what works is taking people along with you through the journey. Yeah, if you come towards the end and say, guys, let's just do this brilliant idea, and it's going to fail. Yeah. But if you really start at the beginning and say, what do you think? These are the 5 ideas. Where is your energy? And you really involve them through the process of co-creation and make the ideas their own rather than a top-down, that typically goes much faster and much higher. Right? So you have to really follow those principles of co-creation. You have to follow the principle of being more, to be more effective, you have to be inefficient at times. So you have to basically get into more conversations, more meetings, get the buy-in of everybody. So it's a little bit inefficient, but it's more effective in that sense. You have to follow that principle. And you have to get people to actually do it. Yeah, so you can't tell them the how. You can tell them the what, but you cannot tell them the how. So let them figure out the how to do it. I think if you follow, and then communication, motivation, rewards and recognition, and and keeping a full 360-degree view on if something is successful, how do you get those people promotions, and then they go to a different country and actually execute, and so on and so forth. So it has to be a full package from that ideation place to a recognition and learning and working all of that synergistically. Bottom line, you have to pay attention to change management as much as idea itself. Yeah. Now, how do you manage losses? You can bleed to death if you do any of this and you are not conscious about it. So that's where I think a very strong governance mechanism and a pre-PIR, which is an investment decision review, where you are able to look at what's the investment which is coming in, both tangible, which is in money, but also intangible, which is in time of like people resources, time people will spend, organization, energy, etc., etc. And you bet on only ideas which you feel have high confidence, which have been vetted by your customer typically in some shape or form, and where the enthusiasm of the organization is very high. So you bet on those ideas where you get that confidence so that you minimize the losses, but you put in a lot of stage gates during the process as well so that you can minimize the losses as you get into it. So if it is not following the trajectory which it predicted, you can pull out in a modular way rather than spending everything upfront. So you pay as you go model, as we call it in the industry, where you invest some, get some returns, then you invest the next tranche, you get some returns, then you invest the next tranche. So you don't put in all the money upfront. Yeah, and then I think you learn and you grow in that sense.
Great. Mansi, another 20 questions, but I'm going to keep you with a few, which I think one is special to your heart, a special mantra for women professionals. What do you have for them?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely leadership and diversity in leadership is very close to my heart in that sense. And I mean diversity in a very holistic sense rather than, single-minded. My personal feel on that one is talking to millions of women I have met in my life. The most important piece, if you have to be successful, is you have to ignite your own inner ambition. Yeah, I personally feel a lot of times women get in the trap of, oh, I'm not getting looked upon, I'm not getting growing. And I ask and say, do you want to be the CEO? Yeah, in a room full of 1,000, I'll say, raise your hands. Who wants to be a CEO here? Yeah, and if I go to a room of 100 similar men, I'll probably get a hand of like all 100 rising. When I go to a room full of 100 of women, probably 20 or 50 will raise their hands, right? So why is the other 50 not raising their hand? And yes, there are choices, and if you don't want them, that's your choice, and that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong answer to it. But really, really, if you want to be a CEO or anything of that sort, or a leader in that sense, you need to have your inner ambition very high, very burning, and it should be really, really at top of your mind. Number one. Number two, you need to work very hard for it. Yeah, it doesn't come easy. So you need to be ready to, know your subject really well, more than anybody else. You need to ensure that you are on top of everything. You do your work well. You have your enthusiasm, show your energy. You're ready to travel. You're ready to do your work. Keep your boundaries in terms of what does it mean in terms of your work-life balance, but then within that, you need to be the best. Yeah, so there needs to be no reason that you are not the best. So work very hard, yeah, and don't say I didn't get that because I was gender and da 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 da. Tell me first, were you the best? Yeah, so that will be my second one, yeah, and then the third and the last one, which I would really leave over there, is that really make your choices very clearly, right? And don't quote unquote, the environment is there to help you. So really, really, I mean, if I look at around, there could have not been a better time than today for any women to be rising to a leadership position. So really, really make your choices about your life choices very clear, and then work with your ecosystem, be it your school or your home or your office or your managers, to talk about your mobility choices, your location choices, your work-life balance choices, etc., so that others can work with you rather than either against you, or in misinterpreting the way you are trying to organize yourself. Yeah. So with those three, I think if you do 80 for 20, just keep doing your best, and I have 100% confidence that you will reach where you want to be.
Great. Thank you, Mansi. There are another 30 questions, but I know you've got meetings lined up. So really grateful. And guys, I'm really sorry some of your questions I could address. not 100%. There's one question. They want to see you on campus because they become big fans of you. So that's a question and a hope from our side that they can actually meet you and get all their questions answered.
Absolutely. No, I think let's see how this whole COVID situation plays out. And, the good news is Tarun and I are really good. So whenever appropriate and opportunistic, and whenever you have the space, we'll make it happen.
Great. Thanks a ton, Mansi. Guys, CEO, marketing guru, rock star. You should Google her and you'll see the number of videos. I saw one of hers on YouTube on how she's transforming the business at Shell when she was in India. So we're absolutely blessed to have her with us, and so kind of you to answer quite a few questions. Give us your the mantras, and I'm sure you've created a whole new fan following from us at UBS. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mansi.
you. My pleasure.
Wish you all the best.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely interacting with you guys. I think these are my passion areas. So thanks, Tarun, again for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed. I put this together literally in like 10-15 minutes. But it's a very interesting topic. I hope you got a few insights on what you can do and how you can think about really holistically looking at your business. And I look forward to interacting with you on LinkedIn, Twitter, and hopefully see you in person as well. All right, take care. And
Mansi,
all the
just
best.
keep a look on the right. These guys are going to tell you how much they loved your session. Would love to meet you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Awesome, informative, amazing. Want to see you on campus.
All right.
Cheers.
Yes.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye. Namaste. And thank you. Bye-bye.